Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session 25, Rare and Neglected Diseases. This is a fascinating subject, which maybe not so much affects us in the north, but it affects hundreds of millions of people in the south. And I think that's the great problem. But we are going to hear more about this. Let me start with a few remarks about the organization. We have 8 speakers. The time allocated is a maximum of 15 minutes, but rather a bit less. And we go through the presentations in one go. And then we have, at the end, we have a debate and questions and answers. So that's the format we are going to do it. So we start with a presentation by myself. I will give you an introduction into neglected diseases, current status, and what's the situation is today. You see, I changed the title slightly. I brought in the word tropical, because this is my field of expertise, and this is also where a lot of problematic lies and a lot of need. So when we look at tropical disease pathogens, then you probably all know that we have 4 groups of agents. We have the unicellular parasites, so-called protozoan parasites. Then we have the helminths, or the worms, and the bacteria and the viruses. So these are tropical diseases, and the WHO, they classified 17 or so diseases out of them as neglected tropical diseases. So this list is not built in stone, but it can probably change a bit. So among the protozoans, we have Chagas disease, African sleeping sickness, leishmaniasis. And they also put in brackets malaria, because malaria in many parts of Africa is still a neglected disease. And after all, malaria is the most important parasitic disease we have, with about maybe a mortality of 200,000 or 300,000 per year, and about 200 million malaria episodes worldwide per year. Then among the helminths, there's a whole zoo. You may know some of the diseases, others you may not know, but we don't have the time to go through this. We move on to the bacteria, where we have, for instance, Buruli ulcer. This is also a very neglected disease. We do not even know exactly how it's being transmitted, and there is no good therapy for it. And among the viruses, we have dengue and rabies. Again, I added here Ebola and Zika, simply because these 2 pathogens, they were in the press and they caused lots of problems, and Zika is currently causing problems, and we are going to have a presentation on this subject later on. Now, what is the global burden of neglected diseases? These are figures from 2010, and among the infectious diseases, we have 3 diseases dominating. This is malaria, HIV, and tuberculosis, referred to as the big 3. They cause together about $200 million. These are life years lost due to death or disability. Now, when you look at the neglected diseases, then you get the impression this is negligible. Well, no. When you add it all up, then you see that the number $26 million results, and this is just about half of the DALYs caused by tuberculosis. Now, the current situation regarding drugs and vaccines, especially for drugs, the situation is really really problematic for most of these diseases. The number of products is limited. They have all kinds of liabilities. They can be toxic, they can be ineffective. And after all, for some of the diseases, there is no real drug yet. But one of the major problems is the drug-resistant parasite. And we certainly hear more about this, especially in malaria. This forces the community to come up with new drugs constantly, because each drug will sooner or later lose its efficacy. And that's also interesting to note that there is no vaccine for protozoan, for any protozoan or any helminth disease. Although, especially for a malaria vaccine, a lot of work has been done. And there are products in the near future on the horizon. Diagnostics, that's also a very important tool to control these diseases. Diagnostics are also leading a poor life. This is old-fashioned all. It's based on microscopic examination of samples, then serology can be done. Also antigen detection tests. These are good tests, but these tests, they are not made for the field. And what we really need is rapid diagnostic tests, which can be used in the field under a mango tree, no centrifuges, no nothing. So POCs are really greatly missing. Now, during the last 20 years, we have seen a very interesting and very positive development in that public-private partnerships were founded, or they are also called product development partnerships. So they were founded with the goal to come up with products which formerly were produced by Big Pharma, but Big Pharma, they stopped doing this based on obvious reasons. So you see, no, I just want to mention one or the other. For instance, FIND, that's a very, very nice initiative. The Foundation for Innovative New Diagnostics in Geneva. They want to develop a new point-of-care diagnostics for some of these diseases. Or then the Medicines for Malaria Venture. We certainly hear more from Professor Herrling. Producing drugs for malaria, and then the Drugs for Neglected Diseases initiative, also aiming for producing drugs for some of the most neglected diseases. I just want to show you a few examples and first successes. This is a rapid diagnostic test for African sleeping sickness. It was developed by FIND in collaboration with partners, and it really can help to make life much, much easier, because the diagnosis of African sleeping sickness is extremely difficult. And the paradigm is there that you can only treat when you have a positive diagnosis. So this will be an important element for the elimination of the disease. Also on the side of new drugs, there are fantastic developments. So far, there is no drug that can be given orally for sleeping sickness. They all have to be injected over several days or even weeks. And this is a beautiful development. Fexinidazole, it's a nitroimidazole, and it was also found by, and it's now in development by DNDi. It will be the first oral drug. It has to be taken for 10 days. It's a bit long, but we should not complain. It is in phase 3 clinical trials currently, and something like 300 patients have been treated so far, and they seem to be cured, although the follow-up is very long, so we have to wait a bit longer. It's expected that it will be approved in the year 2018. DNDi has a second interesting molecule in the pipeline. This is a Benzoxaborole, a boron-containing molecule. Here you see the boron atom. It is something new. There is hardly a drug based on this chemotype. It passed phase 1 clinical trials, and I must say the best is that it has a fantastic pharmacokinetics. It has a long half-life, and the expectation is that it will end up in an oral single-dose treatment. And this would be a complete revolution and would be necessary for the elimination. I'm talking about elimination, and that's a good keyword. In the year 2012, there was a big meeting in London. The London Declaration on Neglected Tropical Diseases was signed by WHO, by major donor organizations, by all the big pharma, by NGOs, by governmental organizations, with the aim to eliminate 5 of these terrible diseases by the year 2020 or 2030. It was corrected in the meantime, and to control another 5. Now here you see the list of diseases which are on the radar for control. These 5, and a further 5 are targeted for control by the year 2030. Now, where were we when this declaration was signed in 2012? The yellow bars, they show you where we were. So for most of these diseases, we were still far from the target line. Then the purple bar, they indicate where we expect to get with existing tools. And you see that with the exception of the guinea worm disease, all the other diseases, they need new tools. And new tools, that means new strategies, but mainly also new diagnostics and new drugs. And then it could work out. I'm personally much involved in sleeping sickness, African sleeping sickness, and this is one of the diseases on target for elimination. Here you see the number of cases. They came down tremendously during the last 20 years. The number of unknown cases, the estimated cases, is even much higher. But if we just look at the reported cases, then you can see that the numbers came down. This was due to lots of surveillance activities, treatment activities by many organizations. And the last figure we have for 2014 was less than 4,000 patients. Now, to reach the goal of elimination, of course, it depends how you eliminate, how you define elimination, and WHO defines it as less than 2,000 cases, reported cases per year, and also a prevalence below certain levels in certain areas. So it appears that elimination on this definition for sleeping sickness is realistic. But that's another interesting thing. At our institute, we have a group of economists. They did models and calculations, how the cost would be to realize this elimination. And the cost for the elimination over the next 30 years, and this means 15 years to eliminate and 15 years follow-up, would be, in the cheapest case, over $1 billion US, and for other models even more than that. These are enormous amounts of money. And everybody is asking, where should this money come from? Now, to conclude and to focus maybe a little bit on the elimination, which is now the declared goal for some of these neglected diseases. And by the way, there is also a program for malaria, the eradication program for malaria, which runs a bit on a separate track. But I'm sure we can discuss this also. This is also ongoing. So what is needed? It needs many things on different levels. It needs, I think, most importantly, political will and very good partnerships among all the key players involved, including, of course, the countries which are affected. And in these countries, quite often there is political instability, which can threaten it. Then it needs significant funding, as we have heard. And on the technical side, we need better diagnostics to rapidly and also reliably diagnose the patients. And then we need these magic drugs. And an oral single-dose drug would be exactly what it needs. And then I think elimination would become a good possibility. And of course, there's a lot of room for nanotechnologies, which can assist in, for instance, also in targeting drugs. That's a problem in many of these diseases. So I think I stop here. I gave you this overview as a basis for the 7 following talks, and I look forward to these talks, and thank you very much for your attention.